What's good, y'all? It is Friday, December 26th. My name is Patrick, and this is The Morning Show. All right, I know that I said on Tuesday that I was not going to have any more episodes this week, but the world be worlding, and there were a couple things that happened that I just felt really compelled to react to, and what better way to do so than on my preferred platform of choice, the podcast. So if you're tapped in with me, tuned in right now, I appreciate you being here. If you are tuning in at a later date, thanks for being here as well. But yeah, firstly, I just want to say happy holidays to you and whatever holiday that you observe or celebrate. I hope that it has been what you've needed. I hope it continues to be what you've needed if it is ongoing or has not yet occurred. And if you have an extended break because of said holiday, I hope you're finding rest. I hope you're finding the small joys in life that seem fewer and further between nowadays. And if you are like my brother-in-law and have to go right back to work today, I hope that work is receiving you kindly, treating you kindly, and I hope you can find some rest afterwards this weekend. Who goes back to work on a Friday? You know what I mean? A lot of people do. I don't know why I said that. We had a pretty busy week this week, and overall, Van got a lot of gifts. This is his second Christmas. It's what we celebrate here in our household, and I would say last year was the year of discovery of, what it looks like to receive a gift, I guess, in which there were not like a ton of gifts given, to this year being the year of spoilage. I'm going to call it, because this year was a shower of gifts from all parties, except for us. I think we've been very intentional, not like tooting our own horn or anything, just being intentional about gift giving, in terms of how we do that in our family, and also knowing that we, as having had the first grandchild on either sides, are going to experience some of that love in the way of gift giving. Our families are going to do that, and that's fine, and because they do that, the burden of purchasing or trying to acquire a ton of toys or gifts or things to play with in that way is alleviated from us a little bit, and we can invest in what we spend on Van in other ways. So yeah, I hope that whatever you do during the holiday, winter or otherwise, but obviously specifically winter, I hope it's been what you've needed it to be. Okay, so I said that the world be worlding and shit is going on, stuff is happening. Two things specifically that I wanted to just kind of give some quick reaction to are one that's pretty personal and close to home, and another that is literally close to home and a lot less personal and maybe just kind of funny, but also, yeah, I'll get to it. Okay, so first off, if you don't know, I am a Korean adoptee. I was adopted from Korea in 1990. Grew up in a white family in Indiana. And yeah, if you want to learn more about that, go check out the John Chi Show or any of all of my content for the past 5 years. Available now on the internet. Anyways, this morning I woke up and I was doing the customary millennial scroll in the AM, and I saw a post by Ears on NCRC, which is like a watchdog group for that particular organization, which NCRC, which stands for National Center for Rights of a Child. And the post said that South Korea was going to halt their international adoption program. A headline like that obviously makes my spider sense go off, and I was like, okay, let me look into this a little bit. I clicked the link in their bio. Shout out to them for providing that. And I went to Naver News and took a look. And essentially what is happening is South Korea plans to halt all international adoptions by 2029. This year so far, there have been 24 children adopted overseas. But the goal is to, over the next 4 or 5 years, phase these adoptions out as they look to invest in and support their domestic adoption and foster care programs. That support also includes, or at least mentioned, including unwed mothers who face a lot of stigmatization in Korean society, which goes back a long time. So, on its face, that sounds really good. Like, this is something that I feel like people have been asking for, nay, demanding for a really long time. And it's something that I think is going to have, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of different thoughts about what it means to end international adoption, while mentioning nothing about the higher investment and support of their domestic programs. Why would we want to talk about that? But, I think that it means a lot of things to a lot of people. And I would say in the Korean adoptee community, it's something that I've heard for both a long time and with renewed call because of what's been happening the last few years with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So long story short, also go check out episode 4 of this show if you want to learn more about this. But the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is a government-appointed committee who has been investigating potential fraud and abuse in their international adoption program, specifically for 367 cases that were submitted by a coalition of Korean adoptees from across the globe. And in episode 4, which came out about a month ago, we learned when the full report was released in English or in multiple translations outside of Korea, or when the report was released publicly for the first time, or at least was made publicly available for the first time, we learned that there, at least from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's perspective, there were human rights violations in international adoption. Certifiably, without a doubt, human rights violations in at least 15 cases, I believe. You'd have to go back and listen to that episode 4. The report was literally titled Human Rights. The report was literally titled Human Rights Violations in International Adoption. So, the title speaks for itself. But big news. I think the original decision was made in March. So, this is 9 months on from when that happened. But last month, big news. Not new news for adoptees who have been, again, talking about this for a long time, but one of the few times it's been put on paper by the government in such a way that legitimizes the stories and lived experiences of the adoptees who have experienced these human rights violations, I might add. Now, a month later, not even a month later, after this report is made public, the country is announcing the end of their international program. And I think it's really interesting, and something that the article on Neighbor News, which I'll link down in the show notes, made mention of, is that just because they say that this is what their plan is, doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. Because historically, that has not happened. So 3 times in the past, Korea has said that they're going to end international adoption. The first was in 1990, and they had a stated goal of ending international adoption by 1996. That didn't happen. In 1997, they said it again, and it didn't happen. And then in 2005, they made that same promise again. And as you can see, same result. 2025, there have been 24 children adopted out of the country. So this is an ongoing thing. And just because, even if the president comes out and says, we're going to stop sending children overseas, we're going to invest in domestic solutions, the words don't necessarily mean action. Now, have international adoptions declined in the program? Yes. And something that I talk about in episode 4 that I wanted to see more of was this, the money trail. There wasn't as much information about that as I would have liked to have seen. But long story short, this is a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry over the last 50 years. And it took 30 years for Korea to go. This is something that we have to think about. Some piece of context that I think is really important that we don't really often talk about is how Korea went from war-torn, poverty, developing nation to first world, able to host the Olympics nation in 30 years. And of the many things that propped the economy up, that allowed it to accelerate its growth and recovery from the Korean War, one of those pillars was adoption. It can't be said that it's not. This report legitimizes that it was. I would like to see more information about the money trail. I would like to see it because it would be a metric or a piece of data that we could use to hold some of these agencies accountable, who so far continue to skirt by without much repercussion for human rights violations, even though they are directly implicated in this whole scheme. But, we got what we got. And now we have the 4th declaration that international adoption will end in South Korea. So, like I said, I think people are going to have things to say. I think first and foremost, we need to be listening to adoptees when it comes to reactions to this news. I think when I hear this, my instant reaction is, okay, we need to, okay, what does that mean though? And again, I just broke it down, this has happened before. And when I hear big, bold, declarative statements like this, we just need further context. I am a reactive person, and you've probably seen me react to other countries like the Netherlands talking about suspending their adoption programs. But people have said, we have to wait and see. The announcement does not necessarily mean the end result. And I think I haven't seen it yet. Again, it's the holiday, so I don't necessarily think a lot of people have had the time to react to something like this. But I think people are going to be reacting to it soon, especially adoptees. But also adoptive parents, especially prospective adoptive parents. When you hear news like this, you definitely see people come out of the woodwork and complain, oh, why were they doing this? Instead of listening to or amplifying the voices of adoptees who are like, oh, hey, that's, I like that news. And instead of asking, oh, why is that news that you enjoy or like, or instead of asking, why do you like that news? We instantly start to blame and shame and attack them for that perspective, instead of being oh, what is What's informing your perspective? Oh, your lived experience? Well, you know what? I don't have that, so that makes sense. Like, let's do that first. So like I said, I just saw this, like, this news just dropped. There are going to be reactions, and this news and these statements, these things have been said before. So I think I'm cautiously optimistic. Um, I'm also realistic about what this could mean, and I also want to say that my opinion is my own, does not represent the community at large, and I am excited to hear from other adoptees and how they are taking this news, how they reacted to this headline. If you are an adoptee, specifically a Korean adoptee, and you're listening to this, would love to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the comments. Hop in my DMs. Would love to have a conversation about it. All right. The other thing that I wanted to react to really quickly is an Indianapolis politician who was trending over the holiday. Favorite of the favorite of the show, Republican State Senator Chris Garten, who we became familiar with during redistricting, specifically during the vote day when senators get to get up and provide testimony and speak. And this man got up there and yelled for 20 minutes. Political policy is political. It's seared into my mind, slamming on the dais. Anyways, Senator Garten was trending over the holiday because he posted some AI images of himself beating up Santa Claus on the steps of Congress or somewhere in D.C. He posted these images along with the caption. Let me get that pulled up. He posted these images along with the caption, "When you find out the North Pole is trying to bring more bureaucratic overreach and unfunded mandates down the chimney disguised as Christmas cheer. Not on my watch. We the people run Indiana, not the bureaucrats. Take it back to the North Pole, big guy. Merry Christmas, Hoosiers, emoji, American flag emoji, Santa emoji, boxing glove emoji." A few things. One, hilarious emoji use, not gonna lie. Two, not the bureaucrats. Which bureaucrats do we think are running Indiana? Because if we're talking about redistricting, I don't believe it was any liberal or progressive bureaucrats that were trying to push through gerrymandered illegal maps. That was coming from right-wing establishments like the Heritage Foundation and Turning Point. So I'm not sure which bureaucrats we're talking about. 3, and 3, I feel like for a long time I've heard about this war on Christmas. I can't think of anything more at war with Christmas or the idea of Christmas than an AI generated image of a man with the sleeves ripped off of his suit punching Santa Claus on the steps of Congress with children looking on. Hilariously, after he was rightfully blasted for posting these images, he doubled down and shared that he had a lot of fun designing these images with his kids. So I don't know what that means, because I don't think it takes multiple people to feed a prompt into chat GPT, but okay. So the reason I wanted to react to this is because when I saw this post, I realize that it's folks like Senator Garten that's not true. I realize that folks like Senator Garten are one of the reasons that I feel it's important to continue to stay tapped in and have these conversations. Because, like I said, I'm kind of embarrassed that this person is anywhere near the state house representing our state. Like, it's embarrassing. I don't know this man. He could be very nice. I'm just telling you based on what I've seen and heard and read. Not for me. And not for what I believe a majority of Hoosiers that I know would want representing them or would feel comfortable representing them in public. Because as we learn through redistricting, we have the power to affect people's decisions, our elected leaders' decisions, if they choose to listen to us. And but the problem has been historically that a lot of us have not shown up when it has been time to vote. Now, there are a number of factors for that. Gerrymandering, 100%. We are already a gerrymandered state. We just defeated further gerrymandering. It's not the fact that we've already been defeated by gerrymandering multiple times. And because of that, it's a lot more difficult to wrest power and control of seats that might give us a chance at representation, fair representation, because of how these maps have been drawn out. So that right there is a problem. And because of that problem, it influences how much we feel or think our voices or vote matter. The narrative then gets spun that our voices and vote don't matter. So we don't go to the ballot box. We don't go and vote when it's time to vote. Not just every 4 years, but basically every year. Anytime there's an election, we should be showing up. Another thing that happens is the national establishment looks at a state like Indiana and says, why would we invest time and energy there when people aren't going to show up and, be a part of this process? And so we end up fielding no candidates, no challengers in districts that very well could go for a Democratic candidate. They don't because there are none. And when we try to field people in those places, I think one of the issues is we're taking people who have never lived in these areas and trying to establish them in a year, 6 months, whatever the case is, whatever the statute of limitation is, for being able to file and run. But if we don't have competent candidates running in these areas, even if they don't win, if we're not putting up the challenge, we're never going to be able to. We're going to continue to send folks like Senator Garten to be our representatives. And then when the chips are down, what happens? Folks like Senator Garten take the money from the bureaucrats that he's complaining about, take the money from the bureaucrats in order to push through policy and legislation that will impact you, me, everybody around us in the state of Indiana in a negative way. That's why I want to keep doing the daily show, the morning show. I keep calling it the daily show because it's daily. That's why I want to keep doing the morning show. That's why I want to keep having the conversations I'm having, because it's more important than ever for us to start to know that we can take back that power. And 2025 has definitely taught me that, especially what's going on with what happened with redistricting. Like, I can see the lights in the tunnel, and we're going to grab onto those lights, and we're swinging into 2026 with that momentum. So that's what that post made me think of. I know it was supposed to be a little bit funnier, but like it's serious. It is serious. And that's why I'm doing this work. Because I want better for my kid. And I don't want better for just my kid. I want better for all of our kids. And people like Senator Garten do not want that. And we need him out of there so we can put people in those places that do want that. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, that person is going to do not just better for our kids, but for his kids too. And his grandkids. The policies and the things that these people are pushing through are harmful to their own families. That's why it's important that we do these things and that we stay engaged and active in our local political communities and scenes. Because if we don't, we lose control of the ability to exist and be. And right now we're trying to fight back and regain some of that control. Did we ever really have it? I'm not sure. We're trying to gain some of that control. And it means defeating people like Senator Chris Garten, who would rather create AI images of himself beating up Santa Claus than hold a listening session with his constituents to find out, do you really want redistricting or not? You know why he didn't do that? Because he's in league with bureaucrats. The same bureaucrats that he is complaining about, ruining politics. All right. Next week, episode 9 coming out. Representative Mitch Gore. Super excited to share that conversation with y'all. He represents House District 89, and we get into that. It is a really cool, fascinating insight into his journey into the state house. And I really appreciated a lot of what he shares about the district itself and the people who make it up and what their concerns are right now and going forward, especially into 2026. So tune into that conversation. And I'm really excited to share that with you. That's on Monday. And then Tuesday, we back with the morning show. Next week, we are going to be talking about the ILEA, the Indianapolis Local Education Alliance fallout from their meeting on the 17th, where they voted 8-1 on final recommendations to send the State House for the 2026 legislative session. There is an op-ed that is allegedly dropping today from Wildstyle Paschall. It's going to be breaking down a lot of this, and so we're going to be breaking down that op-ed. And I'm also going to be sprinkling in bits of my conversation that I recently had with Tina Ahlgren, IPS parent, IPS advocate, and IPS teacher. We talked a lot. She was also on the ILEA committee and as a parent advocate, and we had a really in-depth conversation about all of it. So you're going to be hearing a little bit of that throughout the week too. But we also are going to be moving into 2026, so things are happening. 2025 has been wild in bad ways, in good ways, and I think that is what life is. I think we are also at a really critical juncture in time where it's going to either be infinitely easier or infinitely more difficult to be free, to exist as a person, and to do the things we want to do instead of the things that need to be done in order to secure those freedoms for us. So shout out to everybody who has been a part of From the Kitchen Table, of Conversation Piece of the John G Show, however you found your way here. I appreciate you. Excited to keep this going for the rest of 2025. Excited to keep it going in 2026. And until then, I've been Patrick Armstrong, and this is From the Kitchen Table. This is the morning show, and yeah, have a great weekend.